I first heard of Hammerfight back when it was called Hammerfall, with a public tech demo that was almost entirely in Russian. It was a challenge to get working, and even more difficult to figure out how to play. But once I got the hang of it, I found one of the most innovative and fun combat systems that I had ever experienced. I don't want to give a review of the game overall, since it has a lot of mundane problems. Instead, I'd like to talk about what the combat system does that really stands out. Notably its analog input, detailed context, and satisfying results. Many games strive for one-to-one input for sword fighting controls, especially the new motion sensor games. Ironically, Hammerfight has come closest to this ideal, despite using only mouse input. It works very simply. Your mouse movement is mapped onto the engine of this little steampunk gyrocopter, so you can move in any direction with precise control. You then attach weapons to your copter, and swing them by moving yourself in circles. This can take a long time to get used to, but once you really get it, it feels like swinging the weapon yourself, with intuitive control of the speed, direction, and timing of your attacks. As an input device, the mouse has high enough bandwidth and low enough latency that with enough practice, it can essentially serve as an extension of your body. Some levels really test this direct mouse control. For example, there are some punishingly difficult early levels in which you have to survive, unarmed, against multiple armed attackers, by dodging and weaving and tricking them into hitting each other. However, when you're armed, you never have direct control of your weapon. It's precisely this indirect control that makes the weapons feel real. They have their own momentum, and you have to guide them with your own movements. This kind of analog input and response system is complex in a physical way, and the physics system provides constant and dynamic feedback. This allows you to improve quickly by improving your own personal skill, which can be quite rewarding. Along with the analog controls, Hammerfight has detailed mechanics which give deep context to your actions. For example, weapons and shields all collide with each other using the physics engine, so you can perform parries to defend yourself and beats to break the enemy's guard. Similarly, impacts do damage based on relative speed, so if you can trick the enemy into bashing into your weapon, it does just as much damage as if you bashed your weapon into them. There's a lot of detail in the physics system itself. For example, let's look at the sword physics. They can deal damage just by sliding across an enemy, even at a low impact speed. However, these draw cuts spark harmlessly off of heavy armor. These complex mechanics add a lot of room for experimentation with tactics and strategy. For example, if you add a cannon to the other side of your sword, then you can not only shoot your enemies with it, but also use the recoil to boost your speed. Or, you can spin your weapons and then let go at the right time to hurl them at your enemies and recover them later. Since the game is all about heavy impacts and destruction, the author really focused on making these events satisfying, with juicy layered effects. For example, heavy impacts cause a screen-shaking double vision effect, along with an explosion of debris and sparks, and permanent damage to the environment. Sometimes you can even set fire to the level by breaking lamps or causing showers of sparks. When making a game, you only have so much time to develop effects, so it's important to focus them on the actions that the player performs the most, in this case, bashing things with enormous weapons. I've said very positive things in this video, but like I said earlier, this isn't meant as a review of the entire game, just an exploration of the combat system. The game has a number of problems, but the combat system does three major things right. First, it has an innovative method for player input, which is a fun and complex challenge in itself. Second, it has detailed but intuitive mechanics for translating player input into gameplay results. Third, the whole presentation is geared around making the core mechanic, smashing things, as viscerally satisfying as possible. If you're designing a fighting system for a game, then I recommend at least trying the demo for Hammerfight. Just make sure to crank up the mouse sensitivity so you don't give yourself carpal tunnel syndrome. It's important to look at a variety of combat systems, so we can remember that there's more to combat design than just press A for light attack and B for heavy.